Hi again, it's Jason from Fraser Valley Rose Farm. Today I want to talk to you about how to rescue these body bag roses. These are the kind of roses that you'd find in the hardware stores or big grocery stores very early in the season for a short duration. They're packed tightly in these bags here. Why do I call them body bag roses, and why do you need to rescue them? Well, body bag, I don't mean it in a very derogatory way, but it does have to do with why you have to rescue them insofar as once they go into these bags, they've been through a lot of shipping and handling, their lifespan is very short unless you get out to them, pick the one you want, and put it in your garden. And let me tell you about the way that they're processed, because these are probably grown in Arizona. They get put into a cooler, harvested in the fall, put into a cooler, and then shipped out early spring, crammed into these bags and sent out across North America to distant places. They leaf out like this, but the only moisture they have in them is what's stored in their roots. And by this point, these are quite light, so if they don't get some moisture soon, don't get out of these bags and into the garden, a good portion of these are going to end up in the bin. Now, how are they inside of here? Let's have a look. Let's open them up and see how they're packed, what you have to do to them to give them their best chance in the garden, and we'll talk along the way about whether these roses are worthwhile for you. I want to answer that last question first, the question of whether you should take a chance on roses like these. Are they just so poor quality that you shouldn't bother with them? And actually the answer is, surprisingly, I'm not going to be a rose snob about this, they are worth a shot. Look at this one here. This is a variety called Marc Chagall. This one is a variety called Alfred Sisley. Those are by a French breeder named Delbard, very reputable breeder. And even though you see Vigoro on the outside of the package here, this is from Home Depot, that's sort of their house brand. The growing, don't let that fool you, because the growing situation is probably that these are contracted through much larger growers or suppliers out of Texas or Arizona. So these are not by disreputable growers. These are by large, well-known growers who just happen to grow roses in very large batches like these, field grown in great climates for growing roses. And this is their distribution strategy for early season, which they grow other roses and they distribute them other ways as well. But this is the way they do it through the hardware store. So you can see it was wrapped with a wire here that I just untwisted like that. And let's get a look at what I'm seeing here. The reason I don't love unboxing videos, the questionable entertainment value of seeing me take off packaging. Oh, and here we go. It's got a cardboard sleeve on the outside here and wrapped in there, packed tightly in there. The roots of this rose is like just packed tightly in this sawdust. And that is the rose there. As you can see, again, this is relatively dry already. The roots do retain some moisture, but if it continues to grow like this, it's going to run out of that moisture very, very quickly. And I'll show you some pictures of the racks that I saw at the store, and you can see the effects of some of them just flat out drying out before they get purchased, other ones that have been damaged in handling. So I'm just teasing away some of this sawdust here to get a good look at the extent of the root system. And no, this is not like the big plump roots that I would have shown you on the star roses that I had earlier this year when I did my demonstration of planting. It's a lot smaller, a lot thinner, and although I often say I don't really want to get into soaking them, especially if they're plump and coming straight out of the box, this one here, I think I would take that, because I'm looking at the roots here and I'm seeing just the look of a bit of dryness in there. I think it would benefit from a soak before I get it in the ground. Okay, I have this one cut open. So let's have a look inside here. Same kind of cardboard or thick paper wrapping around the outside there. Little discoloration, probably the beginnings of some mold building in there, not a big deal. A little bit of moisture in the sawdust for this one here. But once again, and you can see there's the graft union there. So this is rootstock here, genetically different than the top stock there. And, you know, looking at it, that makes me, when I see a growth like that there at the base, now that could be, you know, some callousy kind of growth that is not a problem. sometimes that can be something like crown gall, sort of a bacterial infection that gets into the stems of the roses. And I have to be very careful about that because I handle so many roses on the farm here that if I introduce that to my soil, it could be a problem. Now, how would I know? I guess the only reliable way to really diagnose a growth like the one that I see there is to lab it. Send it off to the plant lab and see what they come up with. And again, it could be benign, or it could be caused by a bacteria that could be quite serious if introduced on the soil of my farm. And so I don't really want to take that risk, to be honest. The lab test itself is going to cost me more than the cost of the rose. So sadly, I think I'm not going to take the risk on this one here. Well, I've got my Marc Chagall here soaking over here. I'm going to take that out of the way. Well, I just revisit this one here with that gall at the base of it. And I noticed, I'm going to give you some close-ups here, that gall extends all the way from here down and into the whole crown there. By position, by size, by everything, it's just far too great a risk to take. And so I'm going to take this and I'm going to dump it straight into the garbage can with all of its packing material. And because I've handled it, or handled it with my hands, with tools nearby it, I'm probably going to have to disinfect all of those with Virkon, which is a disinfectant spray, and just make sure that none of this has a path to get out to my gardens. Thing is that, and I think the pathogen involved here is called Agrobacterium tumefaciens, which I haven't confirmed, but I certainly can't take the risk. It is incurable within the plant itself. It sticks around. It also, if you get it into your soil, it can stay in your soil and infect other roses if there are entry wounds for them to get into. So it's not a great thing to have around. And for that reason, one thing I noticed when I visited heirloom roses down in the States, and Ben told me that he just put in a new greenhouse where they do quarantine on all of their brand new roses. And I'm sure they're looking for things like chili thrips and rose rosette disease, but crown gall would be another thing that they would have to screen for before they take the risk of taking a new rose variety and putting it out into their field there. I'm in the exact same position. So all of this gets wrapped up, put straight into the garbage, and I won't take the risk with my roses. And obviously into the garbage rather than the compost, because putting it in the compost means that that bacteria has a path into the garden after the composting process. So this has to go to the dump off property or burned if you find that material. So with the other rose with crown gall disposed of now, I've taken this rose and I've soaked it for a while just in this watering pot here. Now the point of the soaking was to get rid of the dryness in the roots, supply a little bit more moisture, and it doesn't require a long-term soak. You often see people talk about a 2-day soak, a 3-day soak. Overnight or even 4 hours like I just did on this one is often plenty to ensure that there's moisture in the root system. So I'm going to go ahead and pot this up now, having ensured by a close look that there's no sign of crown gall on the roots of this rose. With the bare root rose now potted, and I'll throw in some footage of me having done that, I'm going to place it here in my greenhouse. This is my secret stash of roses. I have some cool Japanese roses and rare roses that I've gotten through trades here, and now this one is going to sit in quarantine with them for a while. Basically, my point is to just leave them here potted, see if the health recovers. Obviously it's been in that bag for some time, it's taken some handling getting through the system. I just want to make sure that it pulls through and establishes roots in this pot, and that I get one more chance to inspect it. Now the question that you may have is, because you saw one of these two roses develop crown gall or come in with crown gall signs immediately of that, what does it say about the health of the second one? And because these operations are so very large, it could have been grown on an entirely different farm, a different site, a different row, handled by different equipment along the way, which is not to diminish the point that crown gall being present on that farm or in the industry is an industry-wide concern, but it doesn't necessarily mean that one being stricken with that disease means that the other one is too. It's something that I would have to verify with my own eyes. That being said, I'm being cautious and taking precautions along the way. So is it worthwhile to look at one of these body bag roses from the hardware store? Well, the answer is that if you get there early, if the plants are still in good condition, and if you're able to give it a good amount of attention as you're potting it, a good inspection of the roots, make sure it's healthy, Yeah, I mean, this is a great variety from a great European breeder. It's grown by a reputable grower, a bit smaller than maybe what I would get from a larger bare root, but it cost a little bit less too. So probably a tough judgment call, worth it, maybe so if it works out, absolutely. All right, thanks so much for watching today, and if you have any questions, please drop them down into the comments below the video.